This all started when I was 32, old enough to know what's real and what isn't. Too old to be afraid of the dark, or so I thought. It didn't begin with a loud bang or some jump scare. No scratching at the window or whispers in the night. It began with a dream, one that felt too quiet, too still, like the kind of wrong that doesn't scream at you. It just settles into your bones, like cold seeping through a cracked window on a windless night. In the dream, I'd wake up in my apartment. Everything exactly the way it should be. Same bed, same sheets, same soft hum of the refrigerator out in the kitchen. But I wouldn't be in bed. I'd be standing in the hallway, facing the door to my bedroom. The strangest part? I could see myself, asleep, breathing, peaceful, not through my own eyes, but from a high, tilted angle, almost like a grainy security camera feed. I couldn't move, couldn't scream, couldn't blink. I was just stuck there, watching my sleeping body from the shadows of the hall. The air was thick, dead still. No creaks from the building, no buzz from the streetlight outside. Time felt frozen. The silence itself felt alive. But the thing that made it worse, the thing I still can't shake, was that I wasn't alone. There was a man standing at the far end of the hallway. Still with me? Make sure to like this video and subscribe if you love true horror stories that make your skin crawl. You won't want to miss what's coming next. He looked like he was in his 40s. Faded gray hoodie, scuffed up work boots. His posture was sagging, like his bones were too heavy. His arms hung limp at his sides, and his head drooped forward, chin nearly touching his chest. I could never see his face. Either it was hidden by shadow, or he was angled just enough that his features stayed out of view. But I could feel his stare, that awful, heavy gaze like he was measuring something, waiting. He never moved, never made a sound, just stood there, watching. I told myself it was stress. I was working long hours, barely sleeping, adjusting to life alone after a long relationship had ended. Nightmares happen, but the problem with recurring dreams is they don't stay in the background. They grow, and this one kept happening. Sometimes twice in 1 week. Other times I'd get a break, weeks of peaceful sleep, and just when I thought it was gone, he'd return. Same hallway, same dead silence. But every time, he was a little closer. If you've ever had a recurring dream that got darker each time, drop it in the comments. I want to know I'm not alone in this. Eventually, he was just a few feet from the bedroom door. That's when the fear leaked into my waking life. I started avoiding the hallway at night. I'd leave the living room lights on, sometimes even the bathroom, just to keep the shadows at bay. The TV became my lullaby, low-volume reruns of sitcoms playing until I passed out. But no matter what I did, I'd still find myself there again. Froze in the hallway, the man staring closer and closer each time. Then came the night it bled over. I woke up in my bed, but something felt wrong. It wasn't just fear, it was recognition. The room felt exactly like the dream. Cold air, silence so deep it rang in my ears. And when I looked toward the hallway, I thought, just for a second, I saw him. A faint outline, like heat shimmer, standing at the far end of the hall. I couldn't move at first. I just stared. Finally, I bolted out of bed, turned on every light in the apartment, checked every corner. Nothing. But I knew what I'd felt, and I knew the dream wasn't just a dream anymore. Still, I tried to live with it. What else could I do? Then came the worst night of my life, just after my 33rd birthday. I had dinner with a few friends, nothing wild. Came home, had a glass of wine, and went to bed feeling full and happy. I didn't wake up in the hallway this time. I woke up in bed, just like normal, except I couldn't move. And he was standing in the doorway. He had finally crossed the threshold. I could hear his breathing this time. Slow, wet, like every inhale dragged through waterlogged lungs. He stood there for what felt like hours, just watching me. Then he moved, one step at a time. Step, step, step. The creak of the floorboards burned itself into my brain. When he reached the side of my bed, he bent down slowly, inches from my face, studying me like I was something new. Then he whispered something. I couldn't make out the words, just saw his lips move, slowly, intentionally. And then I woke up for real, soaked in sweat, heart slamming against my ribs. But the real horror was on the floor beside my bed. A single boot print, clear as day, right where he had stood. Enjoying this terrifying tale? Give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who swears dreams can't hurt you. You might just change their mind. The next day, I told my therapist about the dreams. She took notes, nodded thoughtfully, and said it sounded like sleep paralysis or unresolved trauma. Said the subconscious can conjure all kinds of powerful hallucinations. I didn't tell her about the footprint. I couldn't. I didn't want her to think I'd lost my mind. Weeks passed. The dream stopped. Life returned to normal. But I never quite relaxed. Never stopped checking over my shoulder when walking through the hallway. That fear stayed tucked under my skin like a splinter I couldn't remove. Months later, I was visiting my sister. We were catching up, sharing stories, and the topic of nightmares came up. I told her I used to have this recurring dream about a man in my hallway, just vague details. She went white. I used to have that dream too, she said. Only in mine, I was in my old apartment, and there was a man in a gray hoodie, just standing right outside my bedroom door. We sat in silence for a long time after that. She had never told anyone that dream before. Neither had I. Still watching? Hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because this is just the beginning. 2 more chilling tales are coming. Later that night, we were going through an old photo album. Childhood memories, birthdays, holidays, normal stuff. She pulled out a photo from our old house, a group shot in the living room. Me, her, our parents, a couple friends, and then I saw it. In the background, barely visible in the hallway behind us, was a figure, gray hoodie, head tilted, face obscured in shadow. We showed it to our mom, asked if she remembered anyone being there that day. She looked confused. "No," she said. "I don't remember anyone else being there." She sounded sure, but not confident, like something was off. I don't have the dream anymore, not like I used to, but some nights, usually when I stayed up too late or the house is too quiet, I'll wake up with that same feeling, like something is just standing there, just out of sight. And sometimes in the dark, I think I hear it again. Step, 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 and I remind myself, don't look down the hallway. Not tonight. This didn't happen to me, but to someone I trust more than almost anyone. My former roommate, Elena. We were both in our early 30s when this happened, sharing a rental house just outside Eugene, Oregon. It was the kind of place you rent because it's cheap, not because it feels like home. Old, drafty, and oddly laid out. Built sometime in the 1940s with creaky floorboards, warped windows, and rooms that felt like they'd been repurposed over the decades. At first, we joke about how much the house smelled like grandma's attic. Musty, even after we scrubbed every surface and plugged in air fresheners. But then we stopped joking, because the smell didn't fade, and neither did the strange feeling that came with it. Hey, if you've ever moved into a place that just felt wrong, go ahead and hit the like button. I'm starting to think way more people experience this than we admit. The room upstairs was the biggest mystery. During our initial tour, it had been locked. The landlord, a gruff older guy who seemed impatient even showing the place, told us it was just storage, full of junk he'd get around to removing. We didn't press it. The house had 2 other bedrooms, and that was enough. But about a month in, he finally sent over a key. I remember the moment we opened the door, like it was yesterday. It was smaller than we'd expected, tucked under a slanted portion of the roof. The walls were covered in old, faded wallpaper, cream color with a barely there vine pattern. It looked hand-painted, though worn nearly to nothing. Some parts had peeled away completely, revealing cold, cracked plaster beneath. Elena loved it immediately, said it felt peaceful. She moved her things in that same evening. The next few weeks were normal. We'd work during the day, then unwind in the evenings with wine and bad TV. Life was uneventful, until I noticed Elena changing. She became quiet, distracted, always tired. Started to go to bed earlier, shutting her door, locking it, even At first, I chalked it up to work stress, or maybe she was just going through something personal. I didn't pry, not at first. Then she told me about the dreams. She described waking up in her bed, unable to move. The room was dark except for this faint, silvery light filtering through the window, and the wallpaper, she said, would start to ripple. Not all of it, just certain patches. The vines would slowly begin to twist, to breathe, and behind them she'd see something, a figure, a woman. If you're still watching, let me know in the comments. Have you ever had a dream that felt so real it left something behind in the waking world? I'm collecting stories, and yours might be next. Elena tried to laugh it off at first. It's probably sleep paralysis, she said, forcing a smile. But I could see it. She wasn't joking. She looked scared. The woman's face doesn't move, she told me one night, but I can feel her watching. She's inside the wall, part of it. I asked what the woman looked like. Elena hesitated before answering. She doesn't have a full face, she finally said. It's like the wallpaper is trying to make one. Her skin is the same color as the paper, but she has hair long and black, and she leans forward like she's listening. The more we talked about it, the worse things seemed to get. Elena started hearing things when she was awake. Whispers, the sound of paper tearing. She said the seams in the wallpaper began curling up on their own. One night, after a particularly bad dream, she came downstairs shaking. She got out. Elena whispered, her voice hoarse. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? In the dream, she peeled herself out of the wallpaper. Like it was wet. She stepped into the room, and she touched me. She rolled up her sleeve. On her upper arm was a red mark, thin and curved, almost like a scrape. It looked fresh. If you just got chills, subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story isn't even close to over. And trust me, what's coming next. You'll want the lights on. After that, Elena refused to sleep in the room, but she wouldn't let me in either. She started keeping the door locked, spent more time out of the house, staying with friends, even her sister. One night, I heard her on the phone in the kitchen. She was whispering, crying, and saying something like, she wants to wear me. The next morning, I asked if she remembered the dream. She nodded, said she was starting to feel like the woman wasn't just in the wallpaper anymore. She's in my head, and I think she wants out. I didn't know what to do. I offered to call someone, a therapist, a priest, anything, but Elena refused. She'll know, she said. She doesn't like it when I talk about her. After that, I started hearing the noises too. Not voices, not exactly. Just movement. At night, I'd lie in bed and hear the soft crackle of wallpaper peeling. Sometimes it sounded like someone pacing above me, slow, dragging steps. And once, just once, I could swear I heard something sigh. I finally got the courage to go into the room myself. The wallpaper looked the same, sort of more peeled edges now, more subtle discoloration, like mildew blooming just beneath the surface. I pressed my ear to the wall. Silence. Then a faint knock from the inside. I ran. If you're still with me, share this story with someone. Not just for views, but because I think some houses are traps, and people deserve to know. Elena moved out a week later. Said she needed to be near the ocean. I helped her pack. She hugged me like someone saying goodbye for good. After she left, I tried to forget it, but something lingered. One day I noticed a faint stain bleeding through the fresh paint in that upstairs room, where the wallpaper used to be. It looked like a handprint. That's when I decided to call a contractor and have the plaster stripped all the way down. During the work, the guy texted me a photo. You want me to cover this up? It was a name, etched deep into the lath behind the plaster. Anna L. Cresswell. A quick search brought up a record from 1957. Woman in her 30s. Reported missing. Lived in that exact house. No body ever found. I never told Elena. I just painted over everything, sealed the room, and never went back up there. Before we jump into the final story in this series, take a second to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment if anything like this has ever happened to you. These stories aren't just entertainment. They're maps and warnings Last thing, a few months after Elena left, I got a letter, no return address. Inside was a photo, an old one, black and white, a woman in front of a wallpaper wall. Her face, mostly hidden by her hair. Long, black hair. On the back was a message. She found a new house. Up next, a man begins to dream about someone watching him through his window. And the worst part is, he wakes up to footprints just outside the glass. Stay tuned. This story happened when I was living alone for the first time. I just moved into a small one-bedroom apartment outside of Cincinnati. Cheap place. Top floor of a 2-story walk-up. Just me and my cat, Nolan. It wasn't anything fancy, but it felt like a fresh start. I was proud to have my own space. Quiet, clean, finally, some independence. The first few weeks were perfect. Peaceful mornings with coffee and silence. Evenings spent reading or watching dumb movies with Nolan curled up beside me. It was a kind of stillness I hadn't had in years. But then I started having this recurring dream. In the dream, I'd wake up in my bed, everything in the room exactly as it was in real life. Same blankets, same hum of the refrigerator through the wall, same faint orange glow from the street lamp just outside the window. The only difference was him. There, silhouetted in the window across from my bed, was a man. He never moved, never spoke, just stood there, motionless. At first, it was only a vague shape, tall, broad-shouldered, unmoving, a void against the light. But sometimes I'd see the faintest trace of breath fogging the glass. Once, he raised a hand and pressed it to the window pane. Fingers splayed, slowly, like he was testing the barrier. I always woke up sweating. The first few nights, I brushed it off. New place, unfamiliar layout, creaky old pipes. It's easy for the brain to create weird dreams in that kind of environment. But after the 4th or 5th time, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Then came the morning I noticed the footprints. Outside my window, where the man had been standing in my dream, there were actual footprints in the thin dew that coated the balcony floor. Clear as day, bare feet, no shoes, just human-shaped impressions. They stopped right at the glass. If you've ever had a dream bleed into real life like that, drop a like on this video. It's wild how many of us have experienced that eerie overlap. I stood frozen for a while, just staring. I didn't know what to do. Tell someone? Call the cops? What would I say? Hey, I dreamed of a man and now there's footprints. I convinced myself it had to be a coincidence. Maybe some drunk neighbor wandered up there. Maybe a raccoon with weirdly human feet. I don't know. Still, I started keeping the blinds closed after that. But the dreams didn't stop. In fact, they escalated. Now, the man was looking at me. No longer just a shadow. His features began to take shape. Pale skin that looked too smooth, like wet porcelain. Eyes that never blinked. And a mouth that was always slightly parted, like he wanted to speak, but couldn't, or wouldn't. One night, I dreamt I got up from bed and walked to the window. I was terrified, but I felt compelled. I pulled the curtain back, and he wasn't outside anymore. He was inside the room, standing at the foot of my bed, inches away. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. He leaned forward and whispered something that froze my blood. I'm not just a dream. I shot up gasping. My heart felt like it had stopped and restarted all at once. Nolan the cat was standing on the dresser, ears flattened, hissing at the closed curtain. It was swaying gently. No windows open. No breeze. If that just gave you chills, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. These stories get stranger from here. The next day, I went full defense mode. I bought a motion sensor floodlight and mounted it on the balcony. I picked up a cheap security cam with night vision and set it to record from sundown to sunup. I even salted the windowsills. Yeah, I know it sounds ridiculous, but I was desperate. Something about the way that dream felt. It was like I wasn't dreaming at all. That night, I went to bed early. No TV, no alcohol, just me under the covers, waiting for the motion light to trip. I didn't want it to happen, but I needed to know if something was really out there. At 2:03 a.m., The room lit up like a lightning strike. The motion light was triggered. I sat bolt upright, clutching the sheets. Nolan was growling now, actual guttural growling, something I didn't know he could do. His eyes locked on the window, unmoving. I waited. Then slowly, I got up and approached the curtain. Every instinct screamed not to, but I peeked. Nothing, just a balcony. Empty. Still, the air was completely still. The next morning, I reviewed the footage. The entire recording from 1:58 to 2:04 was gone. Static, corrupted, as if something glitched the camera or didn't want to be seen. I tried recovering the file using software, but it was like it had been erased at the source. The rest of the night played back fine. Just those 6 minutes, scrubbed. That's when I called the building manager. I explained what was happening, sort of. I left out the dream part. Just said, I thought someone was messing around out on the balcony. At first, he sounded annoyed, but when I told him which unit I lived in, he went quiet. Then he said something I'll never forget. That explains it. I pressed him, and eventually, he told me the previous tenant. The guy who'd lived in that unit before me vanished, just disappeared one night. No forced entry. Door was locked from the inside. Phone and wallet left on the counter. It was like he just stepped out of existence. They never found him. At this point in the story, if you're still with me, make sure you've shared this video with someone who needs a reason to sleep with the lights on tonight. I moved out 2 weeks later. Found a new place on the other side of town. Top floor again. Don't ask me why, but the windows face a brick wall, and that felt like enough. But the dreams didn't stop right away. For the next couple of months, I'd still wake up in the middle of the night with that same paralyzed feeling, like eyes were on me, like I wasn't alone. Nolan would pace restlessly at the window in our new place, sometimes hissing at nothing. Then one night, I had the worst dream of all. In it, I woke up. Same bed, same room, only the temperature was wrong. It was freezing. I sat up and turned toward the window. He was there again, but this time he wasn't alone. Behind him, barely visible in the foggy glass, were others, dozens of them, all pale, all watching, faces pressed against the window, in complete silence. And just before I woke up, he leaned forward and mouthed the same words. You dreamed of me, now I'm real. I haven't seen him since. But every night before I go to sleep, I still check the windows. Twice. That was the final story in tonight's video. And if you're still here, you know the drill. Like, comment with the creepiest part, and hit that subscribe button if you want more real horror stories every week. Because sometimes, the scariest dreams are the ones that follow you into waking life. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. And whatever you do, don't look too closely at the wallpaper. And don't open the curtain. Until next time, that was the final story in tonight's video. And if you're still here, you know the drill. Like, comment with the creepiest part, and hit that subscribe button if you want more real horror stories every week. Because sometimes, the scariest dreams are the ones that follow you into waking life. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. And whatever you do, don't look too closely at the wallpaper. And don't open the curtain. Until next time,